Hello, welcome back guys. In previous video we created current APIs specific to books in Golang or as part of our application, and we were able to save book data as well, right? Now in this video we are going to fetch all those saved book data, and we will show that as a list in UI, or you can say in book list page. And to show that, I'm going to create a customizable and very flexible as well as responsive table component, and I will name it as app table. So without wasting much time, let's get into code and we'll see how we can create the table. So for that, where we need to go, we all know that we should go in component folder in client, and here I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be app table component, right? So I'll name it app table, and you are free to use any name which you want. All right, so I'll say app table. That's fine. And then very first thing, we know whenever we create any component or any page in Vuejs, of course we are going to use template for that, so that all the element is going to reside within this template. Fine. And then first thing what I'll do here is I'll import all those component which I'm going to use inside this template. Okay, for that what I'm going to say is, first thing first, inside component, not component, inside script, what I'm going to say is name. I'm going to name this component as app table, and by the way you should also name any component so that you can easily find this component while debugging. All right, so here what I'll say is, okay, I'm going to use couple of components, so I'll say components block should be there, right? Yeah, and I need let's say ion icon. I need ion icon here. I'm going to use that. I'll say how. Okay, so then ion item also I need. Then I need ion grid as well, of course, ion grid. And then if I'm going to use grid, then of course ion row and ion column will comes into picture. So I'll say ion col, right? So next what I'm going to use is ion card. Ion card, I'm going to use that. Let's import that. If I don't need that, I'll remove that. Okay, so next ion card content. All right, so basically why I'm going to use this ion card, I just want to wrap our table module in, not table module, table element inside ion card. Okay, but let's see if I'm going to do that or not. We'll see that next. But if you want, of course you can do that. You can play around this component and then it should be working. So ion card, but ion row is still not imported. I'll say ion row. All right, and then ion card should also be there, so I'll say ion card, right? Yeah, now it's imported. And finally I need app label as well, right, for showing the text item. And then I need couple of props over there. So we all know that why we need props. When we are going to send any data, inject any data from parent to child, right? So this child will be considered as a parent. So this component will be actually considered as a parent if I'm going to use it somewhere, right? Sorry, not parent, it's child of, it's going to be child of certain page or other components. So I'll say, okay, I need couple of data here in props. So I will say columns. I need all those columns which has to be there in the table, right? If I'll assume this as a table, then of course I will be having certain columns over there so that I can show the list, right? So next what I'm going to say is, okay, of course type is going to be array, right? And then required is going to be true. Okay, this time this required is new property which we are using here, right? That means this columns is required. Without this your component won't work. Okay, so next I'm going to use data. I'm going to say data actually, and here also I'm going to say type and array. Okay, column is just for showing the columns name. You can say header, table header. Okay, let's say ID, name, email, password, or anything, right? But this data will be actual data which will be coming down below the header. Okay, So here I'm going to say this is also required. Without this you cannot do that, you cannot do anything. I mean to say this table should not be working. And then I'll say pagination as well. Why I'm going to, now there's concept of pagination, right? So let's say I'm going to save thousand of books, right? But are we going to show all that thousand of books here in the UI at once? No, this is not the correct way of showing the data in big application, or you can say in enterprise level application. So thing is, we are just, let's say we are dividing the data into 10 10, or you can say 50 or 100. We should give some option to user, like you can at a time you can show only 100 users, sorry, 100 datas, or you can show 10 data by default. Okay, so why we are doing that? Because let's say you are showing this list item all at once, let's say 1000. What if 10,000 data is there? Are you going to show 10,000 data at once? No, that is not efficient way. Why? Because if all those data is going to render on UI, your browser will crash, of course, and or else it will work very slow, right? Because doing lot of operation, rendering and everything will take time on those data, and your browser will hang eventually. Okay, so to avoid that, I'm going to use pagination. Okay, so I'll say type boolean. So if I'm going to use pagination, I'll just say true, or else it will be default false. So default I'm going to use false. Next what I need is, I will say total records. Okay, total records, not like this, I'll say like this, total records. All right, so now here type is going to be, of course, number, and then default will be 0. Okay, let's say we are showing 100 data, so we need to show the total record there as well. For example, if you have 1500 data over there in the database, but on the screen you are showing just 1000 data, that means 500 data is also there in the DB or somewhere, right? But on a screen you are showing the in the list as 1000 data, so you should show some count over there as well. For example, you are going to show the full count, like, okay, you have total 1500 data, but out of that you are showing 1000 data only, right? So that is what we are going to do here is, all right. And then we have couple of more props. I'll say limit. So how much data we are going to show, we are going to tell using limit. And then we have page number as well. So based on the page number we are going to show the data. Okay, so let's say page number 1, page number 2, like that. Okay, so next what I will be doing here is, I need a pagination position as well. Not pagination position, I'll say, let's say table height. By default, what should be the height of the table? So in this case I'm going to say string, and the default value is going to be, let's say, 90 view height. That means if you will consider this screen from here to here, right? So 90 view height is going to be 90% of the visual height. So 90%, let's say it will come here. So your table will be shown, your table height will be from here to here. Of course, we need to provide some padding top in the top and in the bottom, right? So that it will be placed very it will be placed like in between the screens, so that it is visible more. Okay, you can just play with this number as per you want. Okay, now next thing what I'm going to say is show action button. Do we need that? No, we don't need that. I will discuss that later. Okay, we have all those property defined over here. Now I need couple of data variable, and why I need that, and if I'm going to define data variable, that is going to specific to this table, it's not going to come from outside or somewhere. So I'll say data. If you are having difficulty understanding this now, you will find it very easy as I proceed to complete this component, right? So I'll say okay, sort key will also be there. For example, I'm going to say null, and then sort order will also be there. I'll say default is ascending, right? And then I want to make table in certain way so that I should be able to resize it. What does that mean? That means to say, I'll just give you one example. You can say here, this is, for example, I'll just consider this as a table, whole screen as a table, and then you can see this is one column and this is going to be full second column, right? If I'll just click here and I am able to stretch it right, or I am able to stretch it left, you can see that, right? So I want to make our table in such a way that I should be able to stretch those columns to see the hidden data, because we may have a number of columns, right? And the columns may overlap each other, and then finally some data may get hidden, right? So to make it bigger, I'm going to make it stretch. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say okay, resizing index, I'll say null by default, okay? And then starting from where we are going to start resizing, I'll say x0, and then start with, I need, so start with also I'm going to say 0, okay? And then we need couple of icon there as well, and this time I'm going to use is swap icon. So we can show some icon in the column. So if you'll click on that, icon is going to be show, like if you'll click on that, the list should be sorted, okay? Sorted means either it will show in ascending order or it is going to show in descending order. For that, I'm going to use swap, there's no suggestion, okay? So it should be like swap vertical and then outline. All right, so next icon I'm going to use is I outline. All right, and one more I'm going to use is trash bin outline. So these three are nothing but these are icon present in Vue Ionic framework. And how we can do that, so we need to import all these three here. And how we are going to do that, of course I need to import that. So I'll say import, right, from, this time we are going to import it from ion icons ion, and then icons, okay, it is not there. So actually we need to install this dependency ion icons so that we can use that throughout our Vue application. And for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, let me first close this, okay? I'm going to clear this console, okay? This is cmd, so we cannot type clear command, so let it be. I'll just say npm ie, and then I'll say ion icons, okay? I'll just click enter and it should be downloaded. So let's see if that takes times. But meanwhile, what I'll do here is I'll just go back, okay, we did this, and then here what we are going to say is, okay, this will get imported, not here, right? So this will get imported from ion icons actually. So let me do one thing. What I'll do here is I'll just remove this once. I just want to import it, automatically. So for that, I'm just going to do this. And then if I'll say still there's no suggestions, so I have to do that manually. And for you guys, it should be actually just before writing this line, you can actually install that dependency, and then it should be working fine. So here I'm just going to copy this and paste. I'll copy it here, I'll paste it here, Okay, I'll say from this time it's going to be imported from Ionic ion icons and ion icons slash icons. Okay, we have a folder icons inside ion icons package, and from there it will get imported, and then we are going to use that. So I'll say control F and K, sorry, control K and F, that will format this selection. And finally we'll start designing our table component. So very first thing what I'm going to say is I'm going to use div, okay, and I'm going to say okay, it should have a class, let's say table container. All right, container, fine. Now I will have one more thing over here, style. Okay, so why I'm going to use this style? Why? Because I just want minimum height. Okay, minimum height, and it's going to be, basically I'm binding it dynamically. So I'll say minimum height is going to be of table height, which is coming in props, right? No rocket science here. I'm just designing a page. So here I'll say, for example, app table, and I'll say wrapper. Okay, app table wrapper, and then inside that I will have a actual table wrapper. So I'll say, now again this is completely on you how you are going to design it. This is just a page, but the logic is going to remain same. Okay, and what will be the logic? The component should be highly flexible, it should be very responsive, and we should have certain functionality for the specific component, right? So here I'm going to say table wrapper, cool, and then I'm going to use table, right? So now this table will have a class, and why I'm going to assign this class? Because all this class I'm going to define later down below in the style scope section. Okay, so that our table looks better. So I'll say table, fine. Now very first thing what I'll do here is I'll say call group. Okay, and I'll say reference. Why I am going to use this? Because if let's say I want to resize this table, that time this call group is going to be very useful. And again, why, what is this call group and all? You can go and search online. This is nothing but HTML tag, and then you can find out the respective blogs or some documentation about that. So if you don't able to find that, let me know. I'll make a specific video on this and I'll make you understand it clear. But just assume this is how it works. Okay. So I'll say call group, right? That's fine. And then this call group will have columns, right? So I'll say call, right? And here I'm going to say v4. Now the first time we are going to use v4 here, right? Because we are going to render a list of items over here, right? So we have a directive that is called v4 in Vuejs. Okay, using that we can iterate through all of those data, and then the data will be shown as the list item. Okay, now I'll say columns, and then index will be there as well, and where I'm going to from there should be, see, this is the index of v4. This is how we are going to use v4. So index is completely optional. If you don't want, you can remove it. Okay, so column in, and we should provide here the actual array data. Okay, so in this case I'm going to say visible columns. So what, maybe we can have 10 columns, but some columns I don't want to make it visible. Okay, and why I'm saying that? Because let's say this is the system screen, and we are showing 10 columns over there, but as soon as I will start resizing this screen and I'll make it smaller, so in a smaller device all those 10 columns is not going to be adjusted, right? So we are not going to show all those data. Instead we are going to make couple of data or couple of columns invisible. Okay, so for that I'm going to say okay, visible columns. And where this visible columns will come from actually, so this visible column should be actually a computed property, because whenever there's some change it needs to be highly reactive, right? And we know that all those reactive data we can define in computed properties, right? So I'm going to say okay, we should have a computed block here as well, right? And then inside that I'll say visible columns, right? And what will be the visible column actually? I'll say okay, return this dot columns. What is columns? Columns is coming inside a props, right? I'll say columns dot filter, right? And then here I'm going to say okay, column, and we are going to take only those column which is visible. So I'll say column dot is visible. So from where this is visible will come, now you have again next question, right? We'll see all those when we are going to use this app table component, and I'll summarize this so that you can get it clearly what we did here. All right, so I'll say not equals to false. Okay, so yeah, we have visible columns over there, and then what we need to do here is, since we have used v4, so just assume we are showing list of items over there, but each list item in on a UI should have a unique key, so that view will understand it and update if there's any updated data respective to that specific row or respective to that specific list item, right? For that we need to say view. Okay, let me close this column first, not call group, actually we should close call like this. I'll say this. Okay, this is shorthand for we don't have to write this call again and then close that. So here we need to say okay, you have to iterate through all the visible columns. You will have each column access, and then you will have index as well, but I am going to provide you key as well, and this key should be unique, so I'm going to say index for now, let's say. All right, and you need to make sure this index is always going to be unique. Otherwise, if you are going to update any item, and if that item has the similar key, then the both item will get changes, both item will reflect the changes, and that is of course not going to be expected, right? So that is it, and then I'm going to style it as well. So I'll say style, and style in the case of width, I'll say width, right? Width is going to be column dot width. Okay, so we'll be passing width as well inside the column. All right, or if we are not passing, so it will take auto. Okay, it will auto calculate the width. This is nothing but just CSS kind of thing. Okay, so we are done with this column, and next what I'm going to do is I'm going to define header. Okay, so just below the table group I'm going to say okay, I need t head as well. I'll say enter t head, and then inside t head I will have a table row, not capital, I'm going to use a small table row. Okay, and then this table row will have a class. Okay, and I'll name it as th row. Okay, so this is just naming, whatever you want to keep you can keep that, and then inside row we should have a table header as well, right? So what I'm going to say here is I'm going to use v4 here. Okay, again, and now this will be responsible for actually showing the exact column which we will be passing from the parent. So I'll say column. Okay, and then I'll say index over here in visible columns, right? Then since we have used v4 we should also provide key. If you don't want to use key, of course you can omit that, but providing the key is of course a very important thing, okay, so that you can understand that, find that as a unique list item, and it can update those items very efficiently, okay. So I'll say again index over here, cool, and then I need couple of more thing here. I'll say most down. What is that most down actually? Most down is one event listener, okay. We saw that how we can attach event listener on a specific component, right? How we did that? We used at the date and then the name of the event. So this time I'm going to say most down, okay. So whenever you just mouse down on this specific item, it will start resizing, but for that you have to click mouse pointer on that and then stretch it left or right, right. So I'll say resize, and then in that I'll pass index as well as I'll pass event as well, okay. So we are going to capture that event which is coming from the mouse down, right, and we'll see that down below. So what I'm going to do is start resize, right. So I'm going to create the method. Since that is method, I'll say methods. We need a methods block now, and then here I'll say start resize index, and then second parameter is going to be event, right. No rocket science. This is very simple. We all did that before. Cool. And then here what I'm going to say is I'm going to say this dot resizing index equals to index, right, the column index which we are going to mouse down, right. So then what I'm going to say is this dot start x, which we have created above here in the data section, right. So we are going to use all those properties and make it a work, okay. So I'll say event dot client x, that means it will take out the x position of the event, okay, cool. So this is just HTML event, right. So whenever you click on some element using mouse down, it will trigger an event, it will emit an event, and if you want to capture that, of course you need to attach some listener. So this time I have attached a listener, and that on that specific event this listener will get called, this functionality will get called, and then using that I'm going to take out where exactly we clicked, okay. So I'm going to take this time client x is the exposition of that event, exposition of the mouse click, right. So now here what I'm going to say is start with, okay, start with is going to be this dot. I'll say this dot. Now start with is what? Start with is the column width, okay. So how we can take the column width actually? So we'll say, okay, we have used call group over there, right. So call group, what I'll say here is I'm going to use reference for that to access those call groups, and then I'll say call group, right. Now this call group has multiple call children over there. As we saw above here, we have designed in the same way, we have multiple call. So what I'll do here is I'll say, okay, call group will have children as well, so children, right, and then which children we need to access. So of course the index we are going to pass here, so it will pick up those specific call, right, and then I'll take out offset width, okay, cool. Now what I'll do is I'll say document, which is of course a JavaScript, and I'll say add event listener, okay. I will attach event listener, that is mouse move. So when we are going to move the mouse, before that we just clicked on that specific column, right. Now we are going to move it either left or right. So for that I'm going to attach mouse move listener, right, and then I'm going to say this dot handle resize, right. So for handling of this specific event, we need one more method which will handle this event, capture those event and handle it. Okay, so for that we are going to say handle, we are going to define a method handle resize, right? Cool. And then we'll be capturing the event as well, right? Easy. And next thing, one more thing we are going to say is when the mouse is up, that means we just remove the pointer, I mean not pointer, but we just leave the mouse pointer. Okay, it is no more clicked. So in that case also we need to attach a listener, and this time I'm going to say mouse up. All right. So now there should be a method to handle those events as well. So I'll say stop resize, right? Once you move the mouse pointer left or right, it should resize, right? It should handle resize. And once you leave that mouse pointer, it should stop resizing, right? That's what I did here. So I need one more method over here, and I'll say stop resize, but this time I don't need any event there, right? So I'm not going to define that in the method signature. So I'll simply say this dot resizing index is again going to be null. That means we are no more resizing it. Fine. So that next time when again we'll resize other columns, it will again start with the specific resizing index. Cool. So here again I'm going to say, I'm just going to copy this and then I'm going to just paste it over here. Fine. Now let me implement this handle resize method, and here what I'm going to say is if I'm just first going to check the condition, if resizing index not equals to null, that means resizing index must be not null, right? Then only we can resize it, otherwise which column it has selected we don't know. So what I'm going to do here is I'll say constant new width of the column, okay, and then I'll use string interpolation, which is of course the JavaScript, and then here I'll say okay, this dot start with, right, which I have defined here, okay, and then I'll say okay, event dot client x, right, minus this dot start x, and this is going to be of pixel, right? So finally we have calculated the new width of the column when it is resizing. Okay, then what I will do here is I'll say this dot visible columns, okay, I'll say this dot resizing index, right, dot width. So we are going to just say we are going to assign those widths, new width, into the specific column. So I'll say new width, right? We are done with the resizing of the column. No rocket science, it's as simple as that, right? So let me save it, and then I'll go back here, okay, in the table header. Now we just need to design the table header. So I'll say div dot column header, let's say column header, and you know why I'm going to use this column header and a couple of more CS class, because we are going to define all those class below and make our table look good. Okay, so I'll say column header. Okay, now inside this div I'm going to use label, okay, and of course in this case I'm going to use app label, right? And inside label what we need is we need to pass certain elements, right? So let's say I'm going to use, what should I use here actually? So I'm going to use here is, let's say P paragraph, and then inside that I'm going to say okay, you need to visible the column name. So I'll say column dot column name, Okay, and from where this will be coming when we'll pass these visible columns. So we'll see that in action once we are going to use this. Okay, so this is fine. Next, what I'm going to say is, okay, there will be app icon too, not here, but I'm going to say it here. Okay, there will be app icon, not app icon, but this time ion icon I'm going to use. Okay, so I'll say ion icon. Cool. And then here what I'm going to say, this ion icon will only be visible if the sorting is true. That means we are going to show that sorting icon if the configuration of sorting is true. So for that, what I'm going to say is I'm going to use Vuejs directive. We all know that what is Vuejs, right? So I'll say column dot sort, right? And then I'll add one more condition. I'll say column dot sort key as well. So when we are going to sort certain column, there should be a key to show that based on that key we are going to sort the full list, right? So this is fine. And then what else I need to say? Okay, icon should also be there, so I'll use icon props here, and I'll use swap vertical outline, which I have defined down below in the data section, right? Now I need class as well, so I'll say sort icon so that we can beautify it. And then we need one more thing over here, so let me just do it on the same line. Okay, so what else we need here? Okay, on click of this there should be some functionality which will be handling this sorting, right? So I'll say, let's say handle sort. Okay, and in that I'm just going to pass this column, full column data, but we need this functionality in the method so that it can handle sort. So very first thing I'm going to say handle sort. All right, and here we'll have the access of column, right, since we are passing it from there. And then what I'm going to do here is I will say if, not here, inside that, inside this block, method block, right, I'll say if not column dot sort, right, we don't need to do anything, we will just return it from here. Now next thing I'm going to say this dot sort key, of course I'm going to assign it as a column dot sort key. Okay, so that it keeps a track of the specific data. Now next thing, sort order will also be there, so I'll say sort order equals to, now this time I'm going to say this dot sort order, right, if it is going to be ascending, right, if it is going to be ascending, then we'll make it descending, and if it is descending, then we are going to say make it ascending. Cool, we'll just reverse it. Okay, now finally we need to emit some event so that those event can be captured on it, on this app table parent component or parent page, and from there the API should get triggered to get the latest data, right? So I'll say for that, we know that how we can emit event. We are going to use $emit here, and then we need to provide the name. So I'll say sort, and we need to provide sort key. Okay, and this time it's going to be this dot sort key, which we are maintaining here in this component. And then sort order we also need to maintain, so I'll say sort order, this dot sort order, right? And we need to pass page number, the current page number, so I'll say page number, and page number is going to be what, this dot page number, which is passed as a props, right? So page number, fine. I'll save it. You can send as much as data you want in the emit, and based on that data you can, if you have certain functionality, of course you can do that, right? So we are good till here, and then what I'll do here is I'll go back here in icon. After icon we need a lot more things there, right? So what else we need here? I'll say, okay, there should be a separate div as well, right? And this div will have a class resize handle, resize resize handle. Okay, and we need one more thing. I'll say mouse down. This is the event mouse down, and then I'll say stop. And what is this stop actually? It's called event bubbling, right? Since you can see we have this element inside this specific table header, right? And that element is also having the mouse down event there. But when we click this should also be get triggered. Since this element is wrapped inside this one, if you will click it, of course it will get triggered. But to avoid this situation, what we want is we just need to handle this click, right? So we are saying we don't need to bubble this event to the top. Okay, so we'll say dot stop, so it will stop here. The listener here won't be listen for that click. Okay, that is called event bubbling. So here also I'll say start resize, and then I'll give index as well as event. Okay, so using table header also you would be able to resize it, and the specific column name also you will be able to resize it, right? So event, fine. Now we are done with the table header, and this time I'm going to play with table body. So after table header I'm going to say I need table body. So for that T body I'm going to use. Okay, and then again this table body we are only going to show if and only if the paginated data, okay, paginated data dot length is greater than dot length, let's say dot length is greater than 0, then only we are going to show table body, or else there's no need to show table body, right? It will be coming empty. So where is this paginated data? Actually we didn't define it here, so it need to be reactive. Actually we have data but not the paginated data. So what we will do is we'll just wrap the data inside a computed property, and this time I'm going to say it as a paginated data, right? And what this paginated data will do, actually it will just return the data. So I'll say return, so that we can know, okay, this data is a paginated data actually. So if you want to use directly data you can of course do that, but then modification should not happen on the specific props, right? That's the concept of providing the props. If you want to do any modification you should immediately let know the parent that I want to do this, then parent will do those modification, and then again those data will get reflected here in the child. Okay, so I'm going to say okay, return this dot data. Cool. So let me go back here, and here then I'm going to say okay, I have paginated data over there. What else we need? We need table row as well, so that all data will be there in the table row, right? Now this table row, of course we are going to use v4 directive so that we can have multiple rows over there, right? And how we can do that? We know that first we'll have access to each element, and then we'll have access to index, and then we need to use in and the paginated data, right? Now we need to provide the key as well. So I'll say you all know that what is the meaning of this column. It's nothing but just vbind, right? So it's a single way data binding. Okay, so whenever the value changes, this specific template will reflect the changes. I'll say okay, this time I'm not going to say it index. Let's say to be more specific I'm going to say row index. You need to be very specific when you are defining any variable, so that it will be very easy to you to understand what exactly it's doing. Okay, so a row index makes much more sense over here. And next I need class as well. So what I'm going to say is okay, I'm going to assign dynamic class, and whenever I'll hover on this, okay, let's say alt row. Okay, and what this alt row will do, we'll see that we'll define that in down below. So I'll say row index modulus 2 not equals to 0. Okay, based on this condition, this alt row will be getting applied. Okay, so next thing what I'm going to say is, okay, of course we have table row over there. Now we need table data to show all those columns data properly, right? So I'll say, okay, I need table data as well. So table data, then again we have to iterate through all those table columns data. So again we need to use v4, and in this case I'm going to say, okay, we'll be having access to column data and then column index, right? And we need to provide the actual data. So I'll say visible columns. Why? Because we'll have data maximum of visible columns, right? So that's why I've used visible columns. But why I used why we need visible columns here? Instead we can just use paginated data and then take out the data. But then how we are going to take data? I want to make this component very flexible. Okay, so based on this visible columns name, I am going to take out the data from this paginated data. That's why I am using visible columns. You will get to know. Okay, so if you guys are having doubt, if you guys are not able to understand any part of this code, or you are not comfortable, you just let me know in the comment section. I will try to clear all those queries as early as possible. Okay, so I'll say key, and this time I'm going to say, okay, key is going to be, let's say column, not column, okay, let's say column dot column key. Okay, it will have column key as well. I will be passing column key as well, and then I'll just concatenate it with column index. Okay, so that it can be unique. Okay, and then what else we need over here? We need to say, okay, that's fine, I need title there as well. Okay, so for that what I'm going to do is I'm going to say title equals to, and I'm going to say, okay, title is going to be row, and then it's going to be column dot column key. Okay, now inside that what I'm going to say is we have a spawn, we'll be having a spawn, and why we are going to define a spawn over here, we'll see that as well. So very first thing here I'm going to say if, okay, if column dot column key, okay, column dot column key equals to let's say serial number. So in the column, in the table, first we are going to show the serial number. Okay, so if there's serial number, right, so in that case we are going to show this specific spawn, and then we'll be having couple of more spawn over there. So I'll say velse if. Now this first time we are using velse if as well, right? So this is where I'm going to say column dot column key, right, and this is going to be of type action, right? So first very left side is of course going to be serial number, and very right side is going to be action column, which will have couple of icon button over there, let's say edit or delete or view, you can say. Okay, for that I'm going to check it and show it based on the condition. Okay, let's complete this first. I need couple of class here, not couple of class, but I'll say ellipsis, okay, ellipsis, and then cell. Okay, and then we need to show some data here, right? So how we can show data over here? I'll say, okay, page number -1, okay, multiplied by limit. Okay, I'm going to show the column serial number here, and then I'm going to say plus row index, right, +1. So let's say on this specific, on the first page, I'm going to show 10 data. So the column serial number will start from 1 to 10. And when I click on page 2, then the column should be starting from what? 11, 12, right? So this is just a calculation for that value, right? Next here, what I'm going to say is, okay, in case of action button, I don't need any value. Instead, I need slot here. We all know that what is slot. So this slot will actually place empty container so that whatever value we pass inside this app table component, not value, actually we are going to pass element in that case. So that element will get injected, will take place of the empty container which we are going to place here. So that is what slot is. But this time I'm going to name it. So I'll name it specifically, let's say action buttons, right? And then we need, if we need to provide row data to the specific slot as well. So I'll say row data equals to, and here I'm going to say row and then row index. Okay, this is how we are going to attach or bind the data to the specific slot. Okay, since we know the concept of vbind, so of course we can do vbind. Okay, now we are done with the slot, and then finally we'll have one more spawn. Of course we are going to say velse. Okay, and in this spawn we are going to show the actual data. So of course here also class is going to be ellipsis cell. So I'll copy it here and I'll paste it. The same I'm going to paste here as well. Cool. And then here I need couple of things here, not couple of things, but I need two label over there. Okay, so one label is going to be a simple plain text. If it is simple plain text, of course we'll just display it as it is. So I'll say app label. Let's see that. I'll say app label. Okay, but this time I'm going to check for certain condition. I'll say if, okay, and if there's any symbol, so I'll say okay, if we are passing, let's say any for example, if we are passing data in a props, let's say that column is having a price column, right? So that price column may have certain symbol. For example, price can be dollar, price can be rupee, price can be euro, right? So for that we need to indicate, or we need to show some kind of symbol so that we should be able to know that. And for that I'm going to add condition over here. Okay, so I'll say if that column is having any symbol, right, then we need to show symbol as well. And how we can do that? Of course we are going to use paragraph tag, and here I would say column dot symbol. This is cool, right? Now next I'll just copy it. Okay, this time we don't need any if condition, so I'll just paste it. I'll remove the if condition from here. Okay, and I'll simply say okay, we just need to show the specific value of the column. How we can do that? We'll say okay, column dot, but before that I need to say okay, if the column is having, let's say, true and false value. So I don't want to show true and false. Instead of that I'll say yes or no, right? So what I'm going to do here is I will just check for the condition. And how I can do that? I'll say row of column dot column key. Okay, if that is strictly true, that means this is a truthy value. That means the value is going to be true or false, right? So in that case I'm going to say okay, you just show yes, right? Or okay, yes, or you can say active. You can place whatever text you want here. I'm just going to say is active, since I'm just assuming status will be there as true or false. So in that case I can say okay, it's active or inactive. or else I'm going to say okay, row of column, right, dot column key equals to false. Then again I'm going to check for false as well. If that is the case, right, so I'll just wrap it in a bracket so that it looks good. And if that is the case, I'm going to say inactive. Okay, and then of course else condition we need, which will be of course is going to be a plain simple value, string value, right, or I'll say column dot column key, right, and if that value is there, then we are going to say just convert it to a string. Okay, we don't need any data type over here, we don't have to worry about that, right? So this is what it is. We are done with this. Okay, I'll just save it now. Finally, we have whole table component ready over there. Okay, next what I'm going to say is this table body, we have if condition over there. So we can say one more thing. Okay, I need one div over here, and this div will contain VLs. Okay, so what it will do is it will show just no records found. No records found if there's no data in the table. All right, and of course you can assign this in a static constant file, right, but for now I'm just leaving it as it is so that we can close this as early as possible. Okay, and the next thing what I'm going to do is here I'm going to say this table will have a footer as well. So this time I'm going to use table footer as a class name, and what this table footer will contain actually, let's see. So here I need iron grid, so I'll say iron grid. All right, and then if the grid is there, of course there will be combination of rows and columns, so I'll say iron row here, and then I'll say iron column as well, so I'll say iron column. Cool. Now the very first column I want to show there as, I want to show maximum limit. Let's say as of now by default we are going to show 10 data, but user should be able to select more than 10 data as well, so that let's say user selected 100 data, so it should be able to show 100 data over there. So for that what I'm going to say is I'm going to say limit selector, and then here I'm going to say okay, iron item will be there, right? We know that how iron item we can use, right? And where we have used that, in the home page component. You can go back and check how did we use that. So now here I'm just going to use plain HTML label. Okay, and I'm going to say okay, this label is there. I'll say for what this label will work for what, limit select. Okay, this is just ID of the label select statement, or ID of the element which for which we are going to use this label, right? So I'll say show, and then non-brittle space. Okay, this is just for providing the space, nothing fancy over there. So next I'm going to use select element over there. So for that what I'll say select, right, and then this select will have multiple options, so I'll say option. Okay, and by default let's say I will have the value as 10, I can say here, and then here also will showing the 10. Let me just copy it, copy paste. Let's say 10, then we'll give option for 20, then we'll give option for 30, and then 50. Maximum 50 item can be shown in a table. Okay, to make it more efficient. You want to provide 1000, you can provide 1000, and then see how your UI works. Okay, cool. Now we need couple of things over here, so I'll say name for this select is going to be show. Okay, and then id also we need to provide here, which we have used inside for. So I'll just copy it from here, I'll paste it over here, right? And then we need change event as well. So whenever user will click on 10 or 20 or 30, this select should be able to handle those change. So in this case I'm going to say event, and this is how we can do that, right? This dot, I'll say $emit. I'm just attaching here as well so that you can get different taste of how we are going to use this functionality, right? You can assign a function also here, and then you can use in the same way, but this time I'm going to use in this way. So I'll say on limit change, let's say on limit change, right? And if limit change, that means we need to provide the exact value of the limit, right? So I'll say which user has selected. I'll say event dot target dot value, correct? Fine, we are good with this. And then the last thing which I'm going to do is I am just going to show the page number. And how can we do that? So I'll create one more column over there. So I'll say ion col, okay, and then this column will have a class. I will say ion, not ion justify, okay, content, I'll say end, okay. Now this will have, I will have a div, okay, and this div I'll just simply use it, but this div should be conditionally rendered. So I'll say v if, and when it is going to be rendered, we know that we have accepted one props, which is pagination. If the pagination is enabled, then only we are going to show this div. That means of course pagination. Now I'm going to attach dynamic class over here. So I'll say colon class, and then I'm going to bind the dynamic class pagination, okay, and then the pagination class here as well. So here I'm going to say pagination position class, okay, let it be as it is. I'm not going to use pagination position class as of now. So that is nothing but you can position your pagination element in the center, right or left, but I'm just going to display it at the end always. You can make it at center, left or right. Just play with that and try to make this possible, okay. Now I'm going to say app button. Instead of app button, I'm going just using the simple button over here, okay. Now we'll have multiple buttons, since we can have 100 of, let's say 100 of what pages, so we should have 100 button over there, right? So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use v4 to show all that page button. So I'll say page in total pages, and from where this total pages will come, of course this is going to be reactive data, or it will be coming inside the props. So but we know this page is not coming inside, total pages is not coming inside props. We need to calculate that. We'll calculate that below. So I'll say key is of course going to be page, okay, and then I'm going to assign class here as page button, so that we can able to design those buttons, okay. And finally I need dynamic class as well. So I'll say class, okay, and I'll put here as active, so it will place active class on the specific page whenever we have the same page number, okay. So page number, right, and then on click of this button we should be able to fetch the next data based on the page. So I need to attach click listener as well on this button. So this time I'm going to say load page, right, and then I'll just provide the page, that means page number, and finally I'm going to say page to show the page number over there, right. Now we need what? We need a load page method defined below, and then the total pages of course. So first I'm going to say total pages. So how we can do that? I'll just go in computed property, and I will say total pages, let's say, and it's going to return some data, total pages data. So I'll say return math. Now again, math is one library, so in JavaScript I'm going to use seal value of that. So seal value of what? This dot page number, which is coming inside props, not page number, actually this should be this dot total records, right? And then divided by this dot limit. Okay, that is going to be the total page number. Okay, that's cool. And then what else we need? Let's go back here. What else we need? Load page is defined. Okay, no, we defined total pages and we need load pages as well. So for load pages, what I'm going to say is go back in method. Okay, and event, we need to emit one event to notify the parent. Okay, the table now needs the latest data based on the page number. So you just provide those data so that I can reflect those changes. So I'll say, okay, here I'll say load page, and then we have page number over here, right? Not here, I need to place comma here, right? So what I'll say here is, okay, just emit the event. I'm going to emit one event to the parent. So what I'll say, load page number, for example. You can name it whatever you want, but I'm going to say load page number, and then I'm going to provide the page number. So I'll say page, right? So now click on this page number, it should load a different page data, and then those page data will again be coming from the parent component, and then this table will be responsible for showing those data. Cool. We are almost done, and then we need one more thing over there. Let me see if that is required or not. Okay, I think we are done with all those things. Okay, we are finally done with this app table component. This should be working, and if we found any issue, we'll try to rectify those. We'll debug that, what is the issue we are going to face. And finally, okay, we left the designing part of it. I'm sorry. For that, I'm going to use style scoped, not like this, but there should be a close tag as well, right? So now here I'm just going to remove this CSS, okay, and I will define all those styles. So very first thing we defined is table container. So I'll say table container, and then of course overflow is going to be, auto. All right, and then I'm going to say minimum height is going to, let's say, 70 width, 70 view height, and if I'll pass minimum height as a props, then it will pick up those props data. Okay, so display, I'm going to say, okay, display is going to be flex. Cool. And then flex direction is going to be column. So basically this table will be flexible, and all the data which we are going to show there, it will show as a column, right? No more fancy. I'll say justify content space between. Cool. That is it for the table container. And then what we have used there, app table wrapper and table wrapper. So I'm going to say, okay, I'll say app table wrapper, that is also one class. So I'll say border, for example, I'll say border. Okay, I'm just going to, in this case, I'm just going to design the top and top radius, okay, on either side of the table. So I'll just say top left radius. This is completely optional. If you want to do it, you can do it, or else you can skip this section. So I'll copy paste it, but this time not left, right. Okay, and then we have table wrapper as well. So for that, I'm going to say table wrapper array, and here I'll just say overflow, not overflow and not overflow X, and this is going to be auto. Okay, next we saw we have app table as well, so I'll say app table, right? And I'm going to say width is going to be of course 100%. Okay, and border, let's say I'm going to say border is going to be 1 pixel solid, and I'm going to use RGB, let's say. And what color we need to define here, so let's put some random color and we'll see if that works. Let's see. Okay, fine, it's going to be a bit gray. And then I'll say okay, border collapse is going to be collapse. Okay, and finally I'll say table layout is going to be fixed. Okay, now we need to define a couple of more things over there. So inside app table, right, we have table header, and then we have app table data as well there. So what I'm going to say is padding, use let's say 8 pixel on each of the corner. Text align is going to be left, right? And then white space, I'll say node app. Okay, and I'm going to say overflow. And if you guys is confused about this CSS and all, you can of course search it online. In this video lecture, in this video tutorial, we are not focused more on CSS but the functionality of the application. All right, but still if you guys face any issue, you can let me know anytime in the comment section, and I will try to address all those issues, so you don't have to worry about that. So I'll say overflow is going to be hidden. Okay, and then text overflow is going to be ellipsis. Ellipsis means it will show dot 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 if it is overflowing out of the column. Okay, and then I'll say min width, and this is going to be 100 pixel. Okay, minimum width of the table header and table data is 100 pixel, and then maximum width should also be there. So I'll say maximum width is going to be let's say 250 pixel, right? Now next what I'm going to say is okay, this app table have a lot of more classes. So I'll say inside app table we have a spawn there as well. So a spawn is having ellipsis, we have used above ellipsis cell. Okay, in this case when we are going to hover on that ellipsis cell, okay, so I'm going to make white space as normal. Okay, and then I'm going to use word break. Okay, and this time break word, not break all, break word. Okay, and then overflow is going to be visible. Cool. So basically when the text is hidden, and if you will just hover on the cell, it will expand and you will be able to see all those hidden text, hidden data. Okay, so next I'm going to say okay, app table, and in table header I'm going to assign one more class over here. Let's say background color, and I'll say blue, or we can assign some different color, let's say gray color. So I'll say 5A, 5B, and then 5C. Okay, and then color is going to be of course text color is going to be white, so I'll say white. Okay, cursor is always going to be pointer, right? And the position is going to be relative. Okay, now next thing we have column header as well. So I'll say column, and I'll say header, and this time what I'm going to say is display flex, not fish fillet, it should be display, and then it's going to be flex. Okay, and align item should be in center. Doing CSS design is of course a boring task if you are not a design specialist, or if you are not focused on design, but at the end this is the interface which you are going to present to the user, right? so it should be at least looking good. Or if you want to make it more beautiful, of course you can do that. So that will be very first thing is user is going to see the user interface, right? Not align item. So when I'm talking much, I forgot what I'm going to type. So center, right? Next is resize handle, which I have used after table header column, right? So here I'm going to say width, and I'll say 5 pixel, and then I'll say height is going to be, let's say 100%, okay? And position is also going to be not position, right? Position is going to be absolute this time, and right is going to be 0. Top is going to be also 0. Cursor is going to be this time column resize, so it should show some resize icon over there, okay? And then of course border right is, let's say 1 pixel solid, and then I'll use CCC gray, okay? Next what we need to do is we need to design the sort icon, so I'll say sort icon, right? And just I'll say margin left, and margin left is going to be 5 pixel, okay? You can play around with these values. I'm going to say, let's say font size is going to be 14 pixel, okay? So next I'm going to say alt row. We have used alt row as well above, so alt row. And then I'm going to say background color is going to be, let's say hashtag, and I'll say E5, F3 and FA somewhere, okay, purple color, no, little gray color. And we have used pagination as well, so pagination I'm going to say margin top is going to be 10 pixel, right? And then display is going to be of course flex, right? And then there should be a gap of 5 pixel all around it, and the padding is going to be 5 pixel. Cool. Then what else we have? We have page button defined as well there, so I'll say page button, okay? So I'll say padding is going to be 5 pixel from the top and bottom, and then 10 pixel from left and right. Cool. And then border, I'm going to say border is going to be a 1 pixel, border is going to be 1 pixel, and this time solid gray, right? And then cursor is of course going to be pointer, so I'll say pointer. Cool. And background color I'm going to say, let's say FFF, right? And border radius, now border radius I want 50%, okay? I just want to wrap those button in a circle. Cool. But for that we need width and the height, so I'll say width is going to be of 35 pixel, and height is also of going to be 35 pixel. So I'll say 35 pixel, so that radius will get applied exactly, and then we'll have a circle interface there. So I'll say next font size, right? Font size I'm going to say 0.7 em, okay? Now what else we need? Let's go back here, and we have the table footer there as well, and then a couple of more class over there, so we'll design those as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say, okay, let's say table footer, and then this table footer will have display as flex, so I'll say flex. Cool. And then we have limit selector as well there, so I'll say limit selector, and it is also going to be display flex, right? And justify content is going to be in the end, that means right side, okay? And finally we have limit select as well, and I'm going to say width is going to be 60 pixel, and then not justify height is going to be 30 pixel, let's say. Okay, we are totally done with this component now. We have designed all those things which is required. We have calculated the resize of the column. We have all those properties in place, props, and then we have used all those components here as well. Okay, so in the next video we are going to see how we can use this app table component, and then we'll see how we are going to show the books data over there, right? But there's one more thing over here, I think, which I have not used. So style column. Okay, this is missing out, so it should not be columns, actually it should be column, so that we can say column dot width. Now we are good, we don't have an issue as of now. Okay, so I think it should be working now. Let's see that in action. Okay, we'll meet in the next video, and I will use this component to show all those book list over there. Meanwhile, if you want to play with this, you want to use this component there in the book list page, you are free to use that, and you can provide the comments how it works. Okay, thank you guys, we'll meet in the next video.